Hi friends, welcome back to my kitchen, and as you can see in front of me here I have an array of produce that has either been preserved or still in the flesh in front of me, and I'm really excited to share with you what I've grown this year, how much I've grown of each of the vegetables and fruit, and also how it compares to last year's harvest. So first up, it is nighttime. It's about 7 o'clock on the 1st of May, and we haven't yet had a frost this autumn season. However, I'm ending this growing season right now because I've dug up the last of the potatoes, I've harvested the last of the tomatoes and the chilies, and we're probably expecting a frost either tonight or tomorrow night. So the season is over, and it was a wonderful one despite the fact that it was so very dry. It's been great. I've grown some things that I haven't grown before. I've done worse this year with some vegetables, but better with other vegetables, and I will get to that in a moment. Just a heads up that my dogs are running around the house making noises, and the cats also. So there will probably be some grunts and some meows and perhaps some barking. I will try my best to keep all of those noises out of here, but such is life. I haven't pulled all of my jars out of the shelves. There are still plenty more in the shelves. I just didn't want to have to move all of these 2 by 2 back and forth to our mudroom and to the pantry area. So I have an array of what I have preserved. Some of the items that I've preserved we've already eaten. So this is a tally of what I have right now at the 1st of May at the end of our growing season. So when I talk about the growing season, this is our summer season. So the season where it's the hottest and we can sort of get the most out of our garden. And of course, there is still the winter growing season as well. So these are the totals from when I start harvesting pretty much in January and ending at the end of April. So let's go through all of these and see what we have. Okay, I'm going to keep it easy and I'm going to go in alphabetical order. So I'm going to be mixing up the fruit and the vegetables together. So bear with me. We will be jumping around a bit, but it will be from A to Z, from apple to zucchini. So this year with apples, we didn't do as well as previous years. So last year I weighed all the apples that we brought into our home, and we got about just over 40 kilos of apples last year. That's probably a little bit less than we actually got. We sometimes sell apples, and because we sold nashis last year too, we sold quite a lot of nashis. I didn't include those in my weights, so perhaps I have done that with the apples last year as well. But over 40 kilos last year. This year we got just under 14 kilograms of apples, which is probably the least we've ever harvested from our apples since our apple trees have become mature. And this is because the birds were just all over the apples, and normally we will allow enough apples for the birds and for us and for any other animal that might come in and eat the apples. This year we had foxes coming into our garden eating our apples for the very first time, and I'm not sure if this is to do with how dry the summer was, whether there's not a lot of food around for the native animals, but we have seen these sorts of patterns, these sorts of things happening over the summer and the autumn that sort of indicate to us that there's not as much food out there for the wild animals. So I'm quite happy to share the apples with them, and that's okay. We've got plenty of apples in some jars. So we have 6 jars left of apples. We still have loads of apples in jars from last year's harvest. So we've still got quite a bit there. I also added apple into the plums, so I will get to the canned plums later. But yeah, apples far less than last year. Now, our beetroot. Beetroot is one thing that I grow quite a lot of, and last year we had a huge amount. We had just under 18 kilos of beetroot, and it took us quite a while to get through our pickled beetroot. I also made lots of beetroot dip, which is in the freezer. And so this year we only grew just over 5 kilos of beetroot, and we've processed those basically all into pickled beetroot. However, I would have eaten some fresh as well, so roasted or made them into some more dips that we would have shared as a family. So all up, but also probably including some of my parents' beetroot as well, we bottled, or we have left, because we have been working through the beetroot. We've got 18 jars left of the pickled beetroot. And I must point out there are some beetroots out there still in the garden that are ready to be harvested. I planted those quite late in the season. I think I planted them January or February. And so I haven't counted those in this weighing just because I haven't harvested them yet and they're not going to be bothered by the frost. So I will include those in my winter weighings when I get around to harvesting them. Capsicums. So last year we grew 1.5 or just over 1.5 kilos of capsicums. These were full-size capsicums. So they were only really small. I've never been very successful with growing a huge amount of capsicums. I have a friend who grows the most beautiful capsicums, and I'm interested to learn from her how she does it. This year we grew 636 grams of tiny mini capsicums. I only had one plant that was the bigger variety, so most of them came from the mini capsicum varieties, and we enjoyed stuffing these. They were absolutely delicious, stuffed with goat's cheese and herbs, and I'll have to pop on the screen what else we stuffed in those capsicums and roasted them in the oven. They were delicious. Now, carrots. We grew a really great amount of carrots, and I have frozen some of them. I've taken this out of this freezer here that we have in our kitchen to show you, but most of the carrots are in our deep freeze in the shed. So I blanched these and froze them in Ziploc bags. Last year we grew just under 8.5 kilograms of carrots. This year we grew just under 11 kilograms of carrots. So I'm really, really happy with that number. I know I can improve a lot more on something that we eat a lot of. And I did have the intention of succession sowing the carrots, which I did do, but I'm hoping that from now on I will have more of a routine of doing them more often. So sowing them more often and getting a bit more of a flow of carrots. But we have a great amount of carrots in the freezer, and I don't know if you can see the colours, but we grew the purple dragon ones and some orange ones and some yellow ones as well. Can't remember the names. So we grew quite a variety of carrots, but the purple dragon ones we grew the most. All right, chilies. I have still got some chilies here. We've got some heirloom varieties, which I'm not sure what variety they are. And I've also got a huge amount of jalapeno chilies, and I've been drying them. So these ones are waiting to go in the dehydrator. I don't have a tally at all of chilies last year. I feel like I grew chilies last year, but I believe it was the year before. And I've still got some of that chili powder that I made from that year. So I don't have anything to compare it with, but this year we grew just over 2 kilos of chilies, and that is way more than we probably need, way more than we'll probably go through. So we will probably plant less next season and see how we go. Okay, so corn. My corn didn't work out that well this year, the same as the year before. I don't even have a tally for my corn from last year, so I'm not quite sure. But I did grow an amazing amount of blue popping corn, which I will save some of this as seed, but we will be popping some of this soon to show you all. If anyone wants some blue popping corn seeds, let me know. I'd love to share some in our seed swaps. So this is why we have lists of things so we remember, but I haven't had my cucumbers out. So these are our refrigerator pickles. Last year I had the worst cucumber season ever. I think I harvested 2 cucumbers, and so I purchased cucumbers last year to make into refrigerator pickles. We got about 600 grams of cucumbers. I'm pretty sure that was 2 cucumbers alone. This year we got over 13 kilograms of cucumbers. I'm really happy with that. I know that I would like to do better though in the future because we do go through these. Last year I got just enough from the shops, from a local grower actually, and made just enough to see us through the year. So refrigerator pickles are in the fridge, and I think I have around 14 jars of refrigerator pickles left. We've worked through quite a few jars already. Okay, eggplants. Last year we grew just over 600 grams of eggplants. Again, it's something that I haven't been able to grow very well here, and I think it's just timing. I need to get the plants in the ground earlier. But this year we grew almost 3 kilograms of eggplants, and most of those were the mini variety, like the Slim Jims. So they're just the very slim, long ones. Okay, so nashis. As I said earlier, I don't think I tallied up the nashis as well last year as I have done this year. I've got just 4.5 kilograms of nashis from last year. I know that we had way more than that. So we grew and weighed just under 25 kilograms of nashis this year, and we've been eating them fresh. I haven't preserved them in any other way. I think I did throw some into some stewed fruit at one stage, but I haven't preserved them. I'm interested in experimenting with making some nashi paste like you would do quince paste. I've seen some people do it, and I'm interested to see what that's like. But again, we don't really have quince paste that much, so eating them fresh is ideal. And if you have any tips on what to do with them other than eating them fresh, let me know. That doesn't involve a whole heap of sugar as well. Okay, onions. This year I did not grow brown onions, and last year I did. I grew quite a lot of brown onions last year. So I grew over 12 kilos of them. This year I didn't grow them because we tend to not use them as much anymore. We tend to use spring onions, and I don't really weigh those. I don't weigh spring onions and I don't weigh leeks. We also grow a lot of leek. So I don't weigh them because I don't purchase them. So if I don't have leek or spring onions, then I just don't use them. But I tend to always have something in the garden to use as an onion. So this year we haven't really been using the brown onions. I did buy some organic brown onions to put in. I think I put it in the green tomato pickles, and I made some apple chutney as well, which I haven't got out here and I didn't tally up. Let's just rewind, and I made apple chutney. I don't know how many jars, but I did make apple chutney with some of the apples that we harvested this year. Okay, next we have peaches. So last year we did not harvest any peaches because we didn't grow any peaches. I think there were hailstorms and rain at the times that the blossoms were out, and so they didn't succeed. This year, however, we grew and we weighed just under 7 kilos of peaches, which isn't as fantastic, I know, as other years that we've had a huge amount, like a bulk amount of peaches, and they have been quite decent sized peaches in all those years where we've had so much rain. It's been quite ridiculous. But this year, because there wasn't much rain, and perhaps because of the birds as well, we haven't had as many peaches. But I feel like some of the trees the blossoms didn't actually set. So we didn't get fruit from some of the peach trees. And they are coming out of being heavily pruned back because of leaf curl, and the branches were dying back. So we did have to prune them back quite hard. So we're not expecting a big peach harvest for a few years now. Pears. So the same as apples, we got over 23 kilos of pears last year. I think we've worked through all of those jars that I have preserved from last year, but I did manage to preserve more pears in bottles, and I've got these lovely ones here as well, which actually I think I bought these from the shop. Yeah, these ones are shop bought, so they're not from my garden. I've just remembered that. I did buy some fruit to process, and that was plums. So yeah, I'm just remembering now, the plums that are in those jars, I think they're store-bought, but they're with our apples. But I did do some of our pears in jars, and we ate a lot of pears as well. We got just over 7 kilos of pears, so not as much as we have in the past. But again, the birds and the crop wasn't as big. The pears weren't as big as well because the trees weren't being watered. Plums, we're up to plums now. Last year, I harvested quite a lot of plums from one tree in particular, but I believe there were not plums on other trees. And then we have the prune plums, so they are included and they're really tiny, so they're obviously not going to weigh a lot. But last year we harvested and weighed over 9 kilos of plums, and this year just over 5 kilos of plums. So not a massive difference. I have got some plums, as I said, canned, but I believe they were store-bought ones, and we have eaten, I think most of those plums would have been the prune plums, and we eat those fresh. They are the most delicious plums, and I really would like to have more of those trees in our garden. Potatoes. Okay, so away from all that fruit, and we are at potatoes now. Last year, this is really interesting. So last year we had the best crop of potatoes that I've grown. We just had over 43 kilograms. This year, I felt it. I felt, okay, we don't have as many potatoes, and I was correct. We had just over 27 kilograms of potatoes this year. I probably didn't harvest them at the time that I should have, and some of them rotted in the ground, so I did lose a few. I don't think the main issue here was watering either, because I was watering the garden plenty. I think it's more the soil. I had added a big amount of manure on top, cow manure, and this manure wasn't as well rotted as or composted as past manures that we've received. So it sort of added this thick layer on top, and it went really hard. And that's possibly too due to the fact that it didn't rain. But as I said, I have been watering the garden, but it's not the same as a nice, slow, long drizzle of rain that goes on for hours, rather than my quick watering. So yeah, there could be a few things going on there. The manure that was on top of it, now that we've had all that rain that's passed, it's broken up really nicely, and I can see that it just needed time to work into the soil and break down. And now I think next year we will have a much better harvest, hopefully. But I did purchase all of my seed potatoes this year. So I did put a bit of money into the potatoes, and 27 kilograms, that's pretty good, I guess. All right, pumpkins. I have never grown pumpkins like I have grown them this year. It is amazing. I'm just going to pick up one of these pumpkins without dropping all the other ones. Whoop. Okay, look at these. This one here alone weighs over 5 kilograms. I mean, it's pretty good. It's amazing, really, considering the fact that we had no rain, the fact that I've really struggled growing pumpkins in the past here on this property. And the difference in the end was that I put them in with everything else. I grew the pumpkin plants in the garden beds where I grow everything else, and not in a separate garden bed away from everything. They had the shelter, they had the soil, this wonderful soil that I've been working on for, over 8 years now, perfecting it. And so they did really, really well. I'm very impressed. I have nothing to compare this to, but I almost got 44 kilograms of pumpkins. Look, it's not as much as when we grew our 170 kilograms in Melbourne, but it is so very good. I'm so very excited by all of this beautiful pumpkin goodness. I've had some pumpkins look like they have cross-pollinated, but we've been making pumpkin soup, and I'm really very delighted with how this has all gone. All right, quickly, rock melons. I'm pretty sure I grew it 2 years ago and it went better than this year. This year did not go well at all. My plants, along with a lot of my summer plants, got destroyed in that late frost. So I purchased some plants. I got just over 600 grams of rock melons from them. The plant just gave up after a while, and the rock melons did not grow in size. They tasted okay. We ate them. Yeah. All right, this one is a big one, everyone. It is the tomatoes. I think I had the best season of tomatoes I've ever had, and I'm putting that to the dry, hot summer that we had, because we all know that tomatoes love the heat and they kind of thrive on it, really. They taste so much better as well. As we all know, harvesting tomatoes in the afternoon after the sun has been, on them all day, they are the sweetest at the end of the day compared to first thing in the morning. But I'm really, really impressed considering the start of my tomato season looked really bleak with that late frost killing most of my plants. I luckily ran to the nursery, got some more plants. I even started some more seedlings, and I got some seedlings from friends and from my parents as well. And I got over 125 kilograms of tomatoes. Let me tell you what I have done with all of those tomatoes. But first, last year I grew over 66 kilos. So that is almost twice as many tomatoes as I grew last year. So what an amazing harvest. I have got the last of the last 10 kilos sitting over there on the bench waiting to be turned into something. And I've got so many bottles of tomatoes, just plain tomatoes in the can or in the bottle. So here are some of the canned tomatoes. As I said, I don't have all of them out here. I have 41 of these large tomato jars left. Can't remember how many mils these are. I know that these smaller jars, so these smaller jars are about 500 mils, something like that. I would say each of these has around 800 mils of tomatoes in them, or liquid that they can hold. For the first time, I made passata. So I made passata without taking the skins off and without taking the seeds out. I don't see the point. Just make them with all of that goodness in them. So to tally up, I have 41 of these left over. I've already used a few of these. So 41 of them left. I've got 6 of the small jars left. And with the passata, I've got 10 jars. I'm pretty sure I just made those 10 jars. I might have had a few that didn't seal properly and I've used them straight away. So maybe made 12 of them all up. And then I have also made some tomato soup, which I have bottled up. I've got 4 of these left. We have had some of the tomato soup. It's delicious. Another thing that I did, which I haven't done in quite a few years, is bottle up some pasta sauces, or sauces you could have with rice too, because we have this lentil and vegetable sauce. So it's got all my tomatoes in here as well. We usually have this with rice, so we call it rice and lentil sauce. And I also did some roasted tomato sauces. So I put all the vegetables in the oven and then I whizzed them all up. So the vegetables with the tomato, whizzed them all up and bottled those up too, but they have all gone now. So I've only got 3 left of the lentil and veg sauce left, and I've got other pasta sauces that I did make but we've eaten through, and that's what it's there for. It's for those hard days where you just don't know what to make, or the kids need to make dinner for themselves. So it's fantastic. I've got those sitting there and I need to make more. Perhaps I'll make some more with the last of the tomatoes. It's going to be really sad when the tomatoes are gone. I also made 13 small jars of the green tomato pickles. So this is like a chutney that we will use on all sorts of things, and the kids have already opened one of these jars. So perhaps we've got 14 jars actually. But yeah, wonderful to have and a wonderful thing to make with the green tomatoes that aren't ripening. Let me reach into this freezer and show you the big bag of, I just got rid of the ice. I have this big bag of tomato paste, which I put into ice cube trays, and then I've transferred to this bag. I've still got a few more ice cube trays full of tomato paste that I need to transfer into this bag. And I've got a couple of bags of cherry tomatoes in the freezer that I didn't get around to processing. I also have 1 jar left of the tomato paste as well. I believe I made 3 or 4 of these jars. So that's what I made with all of the tomatoes that we have grown. I've still got quite a few over here. As I said, I'm just using them in salads, and I'm making the most of the last of these tomatoes. They're starting to look a little bit sad. I think perhaps I need to make some sauces and pop them away, and we will wait again until summer when we can eat fresh tomatoes once again. So I grew watermelons for the first time this year, and the plants weren't looking too, like they didn't get flowers on them for quite a while. And so I was a bit concerned. These are not to the size that I would have liked. I've already opened one of them. So we ended up with 4, I think. Oh, no, we ended up with 3 big ones like this. The other plant, something happened to the plant. It got pulled out or chopped off by an animal, whether it was mice or whether it was the dogs running around in my vegetable garden. Those ones were tiny, and of course, because the plant got pulled out, they didn't continue to grow. So then these ones came much later. These were from another plant, but I planted those seeds later than these other plants that were doing quite well at the start. So I ended up getting around 5.6 kilos of watermelon. So 3 of them. So yeah, we opened one, as I said. It wasn't as sweet and sort of deep in a watermelon colour, the pink colour, as I would have expected. I'm really excited to open these ones, but I'm not going to open it for you today because my kids aren't here right now, and I think it's important that I do that with them. One thing I did note is that these star and moon, or moon and star watermelons, do have quite a big seed, and so because these are quite small, the seeds sort of take over most of the inside. So you are sort of spitting the seeds out. Yeah, so I'm interested in growing maybe a seedless or a smaller seeded watermelon variety next year, just so I don't get complaints from my kids who have to sort of sift through the watermelon seeds. All right, zucchinis. So last year I actually thought I had quite a small harvest of zucchinis, but I actually had more last year than this year. And this year I kind of felt it. I was like, oh, I just have enough zucchinis, but I even froze some. I blanched some and froze them. So I kind of felt like I had quite enough, more than I normally would, but actually I had less. Last year I had over 37 or almost 38 kilograms of zucchini, and this year we grew just under 21 kilograms of zucchinis. There was one plant that I'm not sure how it happened, but the head of it got knocked off, and so then the plant just didn't continue growing after that. So I did have to rip out one early on. I had about 5 plants. One did really, really well. The other 4 really struggled. We had a windier summer than we normally have, and I think they didn't get pollinated a lot. So I would have gotten more zucchinis had the zucchini flowers been pollinated. I think I would have gotten close to that 38 kilograms that I got last year. So I don't think it's the amount of plants that I planted rather than the weather changing and being that windy that the bees weren't flying around and finding the flowers. By the time I cottoned onto that, I'd lost, quite a lot of fruit, and I just wasn't out there enough to pollinate them myself. I did pollinate at the start of the season and I got quite a lot. And then at one point I started pollinating again and obviously got quite a bit when I started doing that. But yeah, I wasn't thorough with my, keeping up with the pollinating. So I didn't get as many zucchinis as I probably would have liked. But yes, as I said, I've got some in the freezer still. I've got enough to make some batches of zucchini and banana bread and those sorts of things. So my kids will be happy that they get those things baked for them that I rarely bake. And I've got enough there also to make things like zucchini slice and that. So I've got, you know, enough to make a few surprise things through the winter that we normally wouldn't eat because we try to eat seasonally. So that was a lot of talking for me and also a lot of things to go through. I have grown some things that I didn't grow last year. I think this year was so much better than last year in so many ways. I definitely focused more on things like tomatoes and the pumpkins, and that shows. Like, I was definitely very nurturing to these plants and my cucumbers as well. I think it's just really interesting to record these things and see how we go year in and year out. And, you know, it helps to improve on everything and try and do better the next year. But it's also just shows how the weather changes and each year is not the same. And so you won't get the same outcome because of the weather or things, you know, things just happening, weather patterns mainly. No rain or late frosts or things like that, how they can affect what we grow. So I'm going to leave it there, and I hope you enjoyed this little video on what I've grown this summer. And I'd love to hear from you, so let me know in the comments below what succeeded in your garden this year. What was the best thing that you grew, and maybe what was the worst? I don't know. Or what were you most happy with? I know that I am ecstatic over my pumpkins. I'm so very excited by them. I got really, really excited by these watermelons and seeing them grow in my garden for the first time. I wasn't sure what was in my garden when I came across the first watermelon. I was a bit freaked out. What is that round thing? Yes. So yeah, let me know in the comments and make sure to like and subscribe if you have enjoyed my video and my other videos and the content that I bring here. Thank you so much and see you next time.